Classic Restos is proudly brought to you by Shannons, where you can sign up to be a member of the Shannons Club, your local Holden certified service centre, Pace Farm the enjoyable egg, and Heron Forbes Machinery House, where you can buy online. G'day, I'm Fletch and welcome as I bring you back to Detroit, this time for a special General Motors episode as we make our way across the United States for 2023. Of course, it's thanks to Shannons in this week's Classic Restos on the road, stateside. My affiliation with General Motors Australia and AC Delco, this episode here in Detroit is holy grail stuff. Now there's some exciting content on today's show, but I thought I would begin the episode with someone special. Well, it's Sunday morning at a private residence not too far from the Detroit CBD. You're about to see a retired General Motors designer. Time now for John Schinella. John, what a fantastic location. Thank you for inviting us into your home. This is a beautiful place.
Well, thank you. We love it here.
Did you build this yourself?
I redid this home, which started out in 1912.
Wow.
And I had it on double the size.
And you must have designed it, right?
I did get something. Well, I was smart. I had an architect draw up my drawing,
right,
and have his label on it.
Yeah.
Took the city.
Yeah.
Looked at the label. I said, "Oh, an architect, good."
Yeah.
In 3 days, he blessed it.
That's amazing. Beautiful location. The water out the front. Now, what's that lake out there?
That's Orchard Lake.
Orchard Lake. Wow.
That's Apple Island.
That's gorgeous.
Yeah.
You could just sit here all day watching that, right?
Yes, I do.
Now, John, thank you for this incredible opportunity to catch up quickly and have a chat here at your private home. Very interesting career for yourself, starting with General Motors in 1960 in the Cadillac styling department.
Right.
Now, you didn't take long to get yourself down to Australia after what, four short years?
Right.
Yeah. Tell us about that just quickly.
It was pretty exciting. Cadillac was a prestige car in America and in Europe, as you know, and Ford came out with their new Lincoln 2 years before we got going on this, and it had the slab-sided and the small upper and the suicide doors. Beautiful car. But you know, to me, Cadillac had the quality, the die-cast grills, the materials. The Lincoln didn't use those materials, but they had the look, and everybody wanted it. So we were on a crash course for a year to come up with a car to answer that plight of sales. And so I had a chance to work on the 65 Cadillac, and it was a blast.
How did the opportunity for Holden in Australia come about? Tell us how you approached about that.
Well, I was called into the office, Chuck Jordan's office, and he said, "John, you've been doing a lot of neat cars, and we appreciate it, and we need some help in Australia. And we'd like you to go there for a 6-month assignment." And I said, "Okay." So he said, "Go home and think about it and let us know in the morning." So I came in the morning, went to Chuck's office. "Chuck?" Chuck says, "What do you think?" I said, "I'm in, I'm ready." He says, "You'll love it down under, Australia." My eyes open, my mouth dropped. I said, "Australia? I thought you said Austria." And all my friends said, "Oh, we can visit you in Austria and that." And he says, "No, he took this, he had a globe and he turned it around, showed me where it was, way down here. Are you going to change your mind?" "No, I'm going."
Now, you played an integral part of the HK Monaro. Now,
Yes.
today that's high on the collector's list. The design, the ideas, the influence. How did that come to you? How did you come up with the influence for design on the HK Monaro?
The most important thing is, when I was assigned was for 6 months. And we had a very stodgy management level running the place. I'll just put it right out there. They weren't interested in anything new or exciting. And we had the hallways and design staff were blank. So and Joe Shermansky was a great guy. He said, John, take your abilities and let's get this place rolling. And I said, okay. So I got the designers to do big art to hang in the hallway. And I think it was Stacy was he was the financial guy in design staff. Oh, John, I don't know about that. I said, we need artwork out to influence the designer and people who run up and down the hallway. Okay. So they did some beautiful big stuff, still there. And as we did that, we were designing future Holdens. And the young guys, I think Peter Nankervis, Phil Smoot was not there yet. Eugene Morey was there, and there was an English guy. Some great people. And by the way, when I say great people, you are not going to do well unless you have a family of people that are all excited.
A team.
And that was my job.
Yep.
Get them excited, like what they do, because you can't do it by yourself. And I was so thrilled with these guys, how they stepped up. Alf Pays, amazing guy.
So looking back at the HK now,
Yeah.
if you had your time over again,
Yeah.
what would you have changed? If you could redraw that car today, is there anything that you would change on that HK Monaro?
The only thing about the HK that I would do is make it leaner, if it was possible. But I think the design was appropriate for its time. I'd like to have had a little bigger wheels and tires. We were limited.
And when you say bigger, instead of 14-inch to have 15-inch?
16s.
16s?
Yeah.
On a steel wheel?
Yes, steel wheel or cast aluminum, because
Wow,
we
okay.
didn't do that at that time,
Yep.
because that was not in the program.
The big cars often overshadow the smaller ones. We can't forget the Toranas. The Toranas are highly sought after in Australia as well today. Now the first, well, the release of LC LJ, you had an integral part there. Tell us about the front end of those cars, what you went through and how you came up with that.
How come we had that car? We got a car from England called the Viva, and that was supposed to be the car that we were going to make a Holden. And they took it to the proving grounds to test it. It didn't make it, because the roads in Australia, in the outback especially, were a little rough, and the car couldn't take the punishment as an HK could. So we had the chance to do a fresh design from ground up. And actually the front end, that's a key for you. I have a sketch of that. That's mine. And I tell you what, I modeled it. And I'm not a good modeler. But we got it for show for management. We got it together with cardboard mock-ups and stuff, and they bought it and they said, that's it, we want that.
I've been a motoring enthusiast all my life. My Coupe 4 is rare and very special. A real performance car with all-wheel drive grip. I'm not a car club bloke and I don't work on it myself, but I do have a great mechanic. One day, I might even get that HQ. When it comes to insurance, it's got to be Shannons.
Shannons shares your passion. Call Shannons on 13 46 46. Shannons, insurance for motoring enthusiasts.
When it comes to cars, there are some brands that will remain with us forever, no matter what. The Holden was always Australia's own car, held high in the hearts of many. Those lines, that chrome, the stories around them, and the people that owned them. From the classic through to the final, you can still trust in genuine Holden and AC Delco parts, available through the Holden Certified Service Network. We look at the last of the HGs before we go into the HQs. Now, HQ, you can look at the HQ and it's a very nice style. We can see Oldsmobile, we can see Pontiac, especially over the front guards there. Now, how did the design team know, or at what point did you guys know that, yes, we've got the HQ right? Because
We used the philosophy of the subtle eyebrows over the wheel arches to create speed and length and size. And that was the theme of that car. And that's where we started and that's where we went. The forward progression, the thinking, the excitement of the time, you must have been so inspired every morning to get up and go to work. You bet. It's no secret that Burt Reynolds put the Pontiac Trans Am on the map. I remember going to the cinemas as a kid when Smokey and the Bandit came out.
What a powerful movie. I'm sure it etched into the minds of thousands and thousands, well, millions of people in the time.
Right.
I can't believe that I'm sitting next to the guy that designed the screaming chicken, the big bird on the hood.
Yes.
I still remember it coming out of the truck on the movie and seeing 6.6 litre and thinking, even as a kid of 12 at the time, I worked out that was a 400. Well, wow, we don't have that in Australia. Or not so much going to a dealer and buying a 400.
Right.
But to see that car come out and that hood, how did that come about? What made you go that way and how did you design that?
Well, I'm glad you asked that because when I first took over Pontiac, Bill Davis, one of my guys, the go-to guys, we're talking. We're standing in front of the car. We see this stripe down the middle of the car that you see on a lot of cars. And I said, you know, we need something different. We need us. And he said, you know, I agree. Well, you know, we are the bird family. And I said, well, why don't we do a big bird that surrounds the shaker hood? He said, yeah, why not? So he got the engineering drawing of the hood and some vellum paper it's transparent, nailed it up on the movable boards we had in the studio, and he started to tape. Now the guys in the studio, they were watching me thinking like, there he goes. And they were laughing, and I was laughing too, because at first I thought, you know, maybe am I going too far? And I said, well, we ought to make a decal. And okay, what do you have in mind? Do you have some colors? I said, yeah, I'm driving a red car, so we'll want these three colors, and we gave them the color the plates. Took down to K Screening in Michigan, and they said they'd make a decal. So they made it, put my car in the paint shop, because they have to deal with the decals. Put it on it, and it was a nice evening, and I said to Bill, I said, I'm going to drive this car up and down Woodward and see the reaction. So I started at about 8 Mile, drove all the way up to 16 Mile, going through gas stations, going through eateries. You know, back in that day, kids would drive up and order food, and they'd bring the food up. I said, kids are going crazy. They said, they would look at it. Hey, where's mine? Where can I get mine? And it was going, they were yelling. And I'm thinking, wow. So I went back to work the next day, and I saw Bill and told him the story, and I said, we got to put this in production. The general manager said, you know, John has got something here, maybe. I know he wants it standard on the Trans Am, but maybe if we offer it as an option, and it does well, we're ahead of the game. If it doesn't, we haven't lost anything.
So back to the Smokey and the Bandit movie just for a moment. How did you feel when the Trans Am appeared on that movie and you knew that that was your design? How did it work back in those days? Did anyone at work the next day, so to speak, come in and say, John, you did a wonderful job, we saw that, they saw the hood on the movie, you did you get compliments like that?
Well, Jim Graham, head of marketing at Pontiac, rented 2 movie theaters up there on Telegraph and Square Lake Road. There used to be 2 movie theaters. And had the movie. Invited all the people from Pontiac and all the design staff people that worked on the car. So we sat through that movie. And I tell you, to this day, when you see that car coming off of that trailer, it's hard to describe the emotion. It was exciting. We were pumped. Everybody was cheering, going crazy, because it was ours.
Does the emotion run that deep? Can you well up? Can it really get to you?
You mean tears?
Yeah.
Well, good tears. Yeah. I mean, that's our car.
Did General Motors at the helm enjoy watching the wars of the different brands underneath on the tree? Because ultimately it was all the end goal was to support General Motors.
From what I saw in the beginning, it was healthy. It drove us, we weren't thinking about Ford or Chrysler or any of that stuff. We just were thinking about ourselves being the best as a division. And I think Pontiac rode that pretty high, because their cars were unique looking. I'll give you an example. Being a part of the '67 Camaro, and Pontiac had a car they called the Banshee. It looked like a Corvette. It didn't get approved by John DeLorean. It did not get done. They did not want that. So General Motors gave them part of the Chevrolet, the chassis, the cockpit, the rear quarters and stuff like that. Said, make yourself a sports car. So they made the Firebird. And I got to tell you, that first Firebird, I was pretty jealous, being a Camaro guy at the time. When it came out, I was in Australia. And Titus was racing a Trans Am. And I said, I have to have that as my company car.
Every weekend around Australia, motoring enthusiasts get together to share their passion for cars and bikes. It's a passion that brings us together. All sorts of people, all sorts of cars and bikes. From the classics of today to the classics of tomorrow. At Shannons, we understand enthusiasts. So when it comes to insurance, it's got to be Shannons. Shannons, insurance for motoring enthusiasts. Call 13 46 46 for a quote.
They may not be making the classic Holden anymore, but the legacy lives on. You can still have a Holden certified service using genuine Holden and AC Delco quality parts at over 180 centres across Australia. Go to holden.com.au to find your nearest centre. Book your Holden in, maintain the pride. And of course, if you own a classic or two, make sure they are insured with Shannons. Why not pick up the phone and give Shannons a call for a quote and a chat on 134646, and the Shannons Club awaits you. Why not sign up to become a member of Australia's largest automotive online hub? For more information, visit shannons.com.au. Over all the decades, the time that you were with General Motors, what's the proudest accolade? What's the proudest thing that you feel that you've done that you look back on and you think, yeah, that's pretty cool, I'm glad I did that?
I can't take Holden's out of that. Holden's, in my heart for 5 years, were some of the most fun times in my life. Little secret, I never got a raise.
You didn't?
And you know why? They called me over to the financial before I left to come home after 5 years, and they said, and I figured I was in trouble. And they said, no, we got a mistake, and apologize. I said, what's that? I said, you haven't had a raise. And I said, you know, I kind of thought about it, but I just figured I'm here to do a job. I didn't ever give it a second thought. He said, so we got some money for you. And he showed me what it was. I said, whoa. And he said, also, when you go home, you can go home any way you want to, and we'll pay for it. Just for appreciation and respect of you. And he said, also, Chuck Jordan was aware of this, but he thought we were taking care of it. And we thought he was taking care of it. So when you get home, he's gonna match you up. And I said, wow, okay. So I will never forget my Holden days, because look at the cars we did, look at the people we had. And Phil Smoot was on board at that time. He was a very, very creative designer. And he was much like me. Just think outside the box.
What year did you retire from General Motors?
December of 1999.
John, you've got your lovely wife, Suzanne, here, and
Yes.
there's no doubt that you spent a lot of time here and you really enjoy this place.
Yes.
It's been an absolute pleasure catching up with you.
Okay.
I really appreciate the opportunity. But before I do go, apparently you like your train sets.
Yes, I have a large train set.
There you go.
Yeah.
Model trains.
Model trains.
Yeah.
Actually,
Tell us quick about that. What brand and what are you into there?
well, Lionel and MTH are the brands that I use, and I created my own layout upstairs. I did something unique. A guy bought a train from me and couldn't give me the cash at the show, so on Monday he came to the house, and he walked in, and at that time I had mountains, but they only went down to the track level, and the rest was left open, like tunnels were open, see? He said, John, he said, you can see your trains everywhere. And I said, don't you? He says, no, I have mountains and they go in there and I don't see them. And I said, yeah, but I want to see mine. He said, I like what you did. so there we did. So from there up you saw the mountains.
Yeah.
From below it was open. One last thing I'd like to say.
Yes,
You
sir.
asked me about the cars,
Yeah.
or how I felt about the cars. I said the Holdens. Those are the 5 cherished years for me in my life and always will be. And my heart hurt when we lost Holden. But also being a part of Pontiac and being part of the Firebird and also the Fiero and the products. It was exciting because we could reach out, we could dare to be different, we could think outside the box. Because we were performance, we were sporty, we could do that. And we had to fill that challenge, which was great. So those two right here, as you see by my cars in the case, are the love of my heart.
John Schinella, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on this very special episode of Classic Restos.
Thank you, Fletch. It's a pleasure being with you, especially in Aussie. Thank you.
I appreciate your time. Thanks again. How cool was John Schinella? A very clever man and a gentleman. We should be forever grateful to the likes of the old school, such as John, for being responsible for bringing us some of the designs of cars that make us appreciate and love the classic cars that we do so many decades later. It was a privilege to feature him. We're in Detroit, and today is a very special day because we've got a General Motors episode. You've been waiting for this one, Mark, haven't you?
Yep, absolutely.
We're going to the GM Tech Centre here in Detroit. It's the, it's the Big Daddy, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's General Motors, once the biggest company in the world.
Well, you have to pinch yourself inside here. This is the GM Tech Centre in Detroit, the very environment responsible for some of the world's best automotive designs. General Motors, at one time the largest automaker in the world. Manufacturers of home appliances through to aircraft, locomotives, automobiles and more. Iconic General Motors statements of styling and build. Etched footprints that will remain as reminders forever, such as the GM Aerotrain, the GM Futureliner, and as customers' wants and wallets grew into the 1920s, words quoted from Alfred P. Sloan, General Motors offered a car for every purse and purpose. General Motors were responsible for producing some of the most innovative concept vehicles. This vehicle you're about to see is the reason we have special clearance to be inside here today. And that doesn't come easy. Time to acquaint yourself with the General Motors LeSabre, a 1951 concept car. This car was undoubtedly one of the most important show cars of the 1950s. Incredible and futuristic in style. This amazing LeSabre that you are seeing exclusively on screen now was the brainchild of General Motors art department head, Harley Earl. The design was Mr. Earl's attempt to incorporate the look of a modern jet fighter aircraft into an automotive design. As jets replaced prop-driven aircraft in the late 1940s, they symbolised the very latest in design and engineering. With this in existence, Mr. Earl had hoped to carry this concept into automobile design, and he got very close. This LeSabre was built to be roadworthy and became Mr. Earl's personal automobile for 2 years after finishing its tour of the auto show circuit. Imagine seeing this going down the road back in the 1950s. Imagine seeing it now. Here we are at the GM Tech Centre here in Warren, in Michigan. Jacob, welcome to today's show.
Hello, Fletch. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Tell us about this car in terms of the purpose of it. Why is it here?
Yeah, it's the 1951 LeSabre. It is GM's, follow-up to the Y job. It was both, it was an experimental vehicle, but it was both an engineering and a design development vehicle. Test the future of the automotive industry.
What a time. I mean, we're talking rocket inspiration here. I mean, you guys hadn't put men on the moon at this stage. What an era. Obviously never to be repeated again, and it couldn't be, even if it was attempted.
Yes, that's one thing that's awesome about the vehicle is the jet influence on it, the tail light, with the afterburner brake light appearance to it, the high fins on it. Those are items that influenced GM through '59 when we had our highest fins of the year, and every brand had their own version of it.
Jacob, run us through some of the features of this car from 1951.
Yes, it has a 215 cubic inch V8 that's both gasoline and methanol injected. If you apply the accelerator more than 50%, then the alcohol comes into it. It is supercharged. But at 215 cubic inch, it is 335 horsepower, and that is unheard of numbers for the day to have such a small displacement with such a high horsepower output.
Was it quite reliable in terms of the level of prototype? Did it do everything properly? Did it behave itself? Was it a good car?
Oh yes, especially from a powertrain standpoint. It has a rear differential, transmissions mounted in the back. It's got inbound brakes, and both vehicles from the get-go had a very reliable output to them. And then there was a lot of other small engineering feats in the vehicle as well. They have 4 hydraulic jacks mounted underneath them that lift the vehicle up one at a time to change a tire if you had that distress.
I think it's sensible too how they spaced out the parts through over the length of the vehicle just to balance things up as well.
Oh yes, they were looking at weight distribution because for 1951 this was a sports car in that time frame, 2-seater. But there's a lot of magnesium and aluminum used in the build of this vehicle. They're very light for the size of the car. It looks like a very heavy car, but it's a unibody frame, and a lot of advancements in that area as well.
Also, too, for this prototype car for 1951 too, Jacob, I believe the first car with the wraparound windscreen. What can you tell us about that?
Oh yes, it was, advancement in glass at that time, and that's one thing they were working on is more aerodynamic and just better styling. And that was the XP 300 and the Sabre were the first to work on the wraparound windshield.
Any other features?
Yes, there's a rain sensor inside the cabin that...
You are kidding me.
No. In case it was raining, the top would automatically close up on it.
Opulence and sophistication are just 2 words that bounce into my head straight away when I see this car. Thank you so much, Jacob, for your time. I really appreciate it.
No problem, Fletch. It was a pleasure having you here today.
You can like and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/Classic Restos TV and watch catch-up episodes at shannons.com.au. Classic Restos is proudly brought to you by Shannons, where you can sign up to be a member of the Shannons Club, your local Holden certified service centre, Pace Farm the enjoyable egg, and Heron Forbes Machinery House, where you can buy online.